Welcome to part 2 of Atriox's story. His rebellion is only the beginning of a much larger saga. Subscribe now to join me as we build the ultimate vault of gaming lore, where every battle, betrayal, and legend is brought to life. Drop a like if you're ready for the next chapter, and let me know which character story you want to unearth next. Another brutal clash erupted on Algilus, and Atriox was once again hurled into the thick of battle, flown alongside his fellow Jiralhanae who drew strength from his presence, though one warrior's suspicious glare lingered on him during the ride. As the fighting began, Atriox tore through the entrenched marines with ruthless efficiency, his every move observed by Sangheili commanders who deployed Sanshoyam eyes to watch for his death. Victory came swiftly, and in its aftermath, Atriox encountered a wounded human soldier. Rather than striking him down immediately, Atriox ordered the man to flee, following at a measured pace before declaring his fury at the Covenant's lies and cutting him down without malice. A symbolic act of defiance against the false faith that had enslaved his kind. Turning back, Atriox faced a brute who had challenged him with suspicion earlier. The warrior, now accusing him of blasphemy, Atriox pleaded for reason, urging his brother to see the Covenant's hypocrisy. But when words failed, he raised his hammer and invited combat. The duel was fierce, Atriox absorbing a heavy blow before ultimately crushing his opponent, standing victorious over the corpse of a fellow Jiralhanae. This moment marked not just survival, but a rebellion, the very spark that would ignite the rest of the Banished. Turning alone to the base after battle, Atriox was confronted by a group of Sangheili led by Jiralhanae, who used the death of Atriox's brother as a pretext to condemn him. Atriox appeared to accept his fate, surrendering his gravity hammer and dropping to his knees. Yet, he boldly defended his actions, declaring that he had only slain one who would have done the same to him. When a bloodblade was thrust toward his face, Atriox caught it with his bare hand, rose to his feet, and turned the weapon on his would-be executioner, killing Hezekiah with his own sword. The other Sangheili drew their blades to strike, but at that moment, the Jiralhanae watching, including the fearsome Decimus and Engeddon, leapt into action, slaughtering the Sangheili in a frenzy inspired by Atriox's defiance. As the dust settled, Decimus knelt before Atriox, and the others howled in allegiance, marking the birth of the Banished. Standing over the fallen, Atriox gloated chillingly how the righteous fall. Once Atriox and his followers broke away from the Covenant, the newly formed Banished were thrust into a harsh reality where survival depended entirely on their own strength and cunning. His forces were composed primarily of Jiralhanae, though Ungoi were also present. Some were already bound to brood commanders, others kidnapped from Covenant ranks and forced into servitude. To sustain themselves and grow, the Banished turned to raid Covenant supply lines, stripping them of weapons, vehicles, and resources, not just to endure battle, but to steadily expand their power. Before long, even the UNSC found themselves in the crosshairs of Atriox's relentless campaign. In January of 2550, the Banished struck the Carter Guard Armory, where Atriox personally slaughtered a squad of orbital drop shock troopers with nothing but his brute strength. The helmet cam of Sergeant B. Wright, one of the fallen ODSTs, gave the Office of Naval Intelligence its first chilling glimpse of Atriox, later confirmed by testimony from a captured Ungoi forced into his ranks. What made this raid stand out was its sheer audacity. The Covenant had little interest in stealing human equipment, yet the Banished emptied their armory of every piece of gear they could carry. Later that same year, Atriox's forces descended upon a Covenant training camp, and when UNSC Marines arrived in June, they discovered the site stripped bare of vehicles and weapons, with only a handful of dead Sangheili left behind. When Oni reviewed the evidence months later, they realized Atriox was doing far more than simple raiding. He was actively recruiting, building a war machine that would soon rival anything the galaxy had ever seen. By late 2550, the Banished had left their mark across Covenant territory, with 7 separate strongholds discovered in ruins, the most recent being a forward outpost tied to Operation Slow Dive. These repeated strikes revealed Atriox's growing influence, and the Office of Naval Intelligence began to recognize that his guerrilla tactics were not only effective, but potentially exploitable in their own war against the Covenant. Some even speculated, though cautiously, that an understanding with Atriox might one day be possible, yet his ruthlessness made clear that he was no ordinary warlord. Prior to the end of the Human Covenant War, Atriox commanded a Ket-patterned battlecruiser, preparing to depart a looted site when disaster struck. Sudden hull breaches ripped through multiple decks, causing rapid decompression. On the bridge, Atriox reacted instantly, seizing a Jiralhanae in a vacuum suit and hurling him against the breach, using the body as a makeshift seal to halt the loss of air. Furious at the sabotage, Atriox ordered Decimus to assign the matter to the ship's newly recruited chief engineer, only to realise that the very brute plugging the breach was that same engineer. Suspicion flared when Atriox noted he was the only one equipped with a vac suit during the explosions. The engineer claimed he had just returned from repairs outside the hull, but Atriox dismissed the excuse outright. To him, the man was either a saboteur or an incompetent, and either fate warranted death. Without hesitation, Atriox strangled him against the interior wall, leaving his corpse to serve as a seal. Cold and pragmatic, Atriox departed the bridge, commanding Decimus to find a replacement, someone worthy of trust, someone who would not fail him. Soon after the chaos aboard the battlecruiser, Decimus urged the Banished to journey to the little-known world of Atriox, where he had ties to key Yar scientist named Sigran. Hidden within her installation, Ran had devised a remarkable invention, a device capable of imitating the signals of a Yanmi queen, granting its will to control over swarms of drones. Decimus, accompanied by 4 Jiralhanae, entered the facility and was quickly ushered inside after a brief skirmish with unarmed Angoi. But instead of pledging her loyalty to the Banished, Ran revealed her true intentions, unleashing the Yanmis against them. As the brute struggled against an overwhelming swarm, Atriox himself emerged from the shadows, standing high above on a platform. He declared that he had anticipated her betrayal all along, sending Decimus ahead only to expose her creation. The thunderous leap, Atriox descended into the fray, wielding his gravity hammer, Chainbreaker. With devastating force, his ferocity reignited the resolve of the warriors who rallied at his side. Ran, stunned by the failure of her drones, attempted to flee, carried aloft by one of her insectoid creatures, but her escape ended up abruptly when Decimus fired a searing plasma shot, killing the drone and sending her plummeting to her death. In the aftermath, Decimus marveled at the potential of her device, envisioning armies of enslaved Yanmis serving as engineers and soldiers. Yet Atriox, embodying the philosophy that set him apart from the Covenant, crushed the device in his hand, rejecting the notion of warriors as mere tools. He reminded his followers that the Covenant's disregard for its soldiers was the very reason they had broken away, and declared that those who served him would do so out of loyalty and belief in his strength, not through deception or coercion. With that, Atriox left the shattered invention behind, a symbol of his vision for the Banished and the higher standard he demanded of all who followed him. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into Halo lore, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Atriox's story. Let me know in the comments, what do you think makes Atriox such a compelling villain? Thank you for watching.